In February 2002, representatives of the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and the Center on Housing Rights and Evictions, an international human rights agency focusing on the right to adequate housing, visited a settlement known as Vuka Vrecica in Belgrade. Vuka Vrecevica is home to about 2,500 Roma people, some of whom have lived there for 35 years or more. The settlement is built on the site of a municipal rubbish dump in highly unsanitary conditions. Rats and other vermin are common, and the incidence of diseases such as TB is very high. The site experiences frequent flooding and sub-zero temperatures in winter, while in summer the dust and stench of garbage is overpowering. The residents lack clean water and must rely on their own ingenuity for power and heating.
As a group throughout the world, the Roma, formerly referred to as gypsies, probably share the distinction of being the most exploited, most misunderstood, most discriminated against group in the world. The Roma population in Europe is quite considerable, many tens of millions. And most of them have great difficulties getting jobs, great difficulty being treated equally with respect to the local culture, and tend to live in very appalling conditions. Few Roma, however, live in as appalling conditions as those living in on the Belgrade municipal dump. There we visited the community, which is about 2,500 strong. They're living in extreme squalor, very bad health conditions, lots of tuberculosis, lots of disease vectors, rats everywhere, appallingly bad houses, some only maybe 8 square meters. All of the roofs leak. The smell was overwhelming. Almost all of the children had scabies. Some of the children even had distended bellies. There were a whole range of health issues there. And overall just an appalling situation, an absolute systematic human rights violation that all of the Roma families there are having to live through.
Like many of those we spoke to in Vuka Vrecica, this family of 12 are refugees from Kosovo. They had their own house and regular employment there, but were forced to flee when the bombing started. Now, they cannot return for fear of attacks from ethnic Albanians.
Jeste imali kuću, stan, što ste imali?
Ne, kuću sam imao svoju
U Gračanici. I šta je sa njom sada?
Šta je sa njom, ne znam ni šta je, ni sam ne znam ni sad šta je. Ono kad je bilo ono napušteno.
Niste čuli, mislim, da nešto?
Niti. Dakle, od tuda i ne znam da li...
Shukriya has a serious medical condition, but the family receives no assistance even though her husband worked for 32 years for the same company in Kosovo. Now, he's forced to work as a garbage pickup to help feed the children. They invited us inside their tiny substandard house, for which they pay 50 euros a month in rent. This gentleman is also a refugee from Kosovo. With his wife and 2 small children, he fled the fighting, heading towards Montenegro. KLA guerrillas stopped them and took his wife away, and she hasn't been heard from since. Now, he tries to look after the children and survive with no help or assistance.
Više nije donesio ženu, ovo je plaće, ovo je bio mali voljeko kako smo izlezili od Kosu i če smo čekali tamo jedan noć smo spavali.
Their house, seen here on the left, is a bare one-room tin shack with little heating and no services.
Doesn't look like the solutions needed are very much on the horizon either. Many Roma settlements exist in Belgrade and throughout Yugoslavia, which are essentially no different, and in many cases worse, than most of the slums or popular settlements that dominate most third world cities throughout Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And because it is Europe, and it's a 1-hour flight from, say, Zurich, Switzerland, it makes it even more distressing that the situation there and the conditions are so bad.
The Vuka Vrecica settlement represents a violation of many basic human rights, including the right to adequate housing. It underlines the fact that all nations, including the developed countries of Europe, have yet to fulfill their human rights obligations under international law by providing security of tenure, meeting proper standards for housing and services, and eradicating the discrimination and abuse directed at groups such as the Roma.